Hey everyone, it's ActuallyJebBush, and welcome back to yet another episode of SoRare Steals. In each of these episodes, we go through every NBA team and find players that we think are undervalued and have the potential to get an increase in minutes or even take on a bigger role on their team. Now, before we start, if you're really into NBA fantasy and you don't have an NBA SoRare account, you can go ahead and click this link right here. This is my affiliate link, and it will give you 20 free common cards, which you can use for the common fantasy contests, where you have the chance to win limited cards. And if you're enjoying NBA So Rare and you want to compete in the limited contests and maybe have a little more control over your lineup, when you buy 5 limited cards on the live market auction place, you'll get a 6th one for free, but only if you sign up with a new account using the link below. Also, if you can make sure to hit that like button and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, something super easy that you can do that really helps me a lot. So without further ado, let's take a look at the Charlotte Hornets. All right, so we're on SoRare data and we're taking a look at the Hornets roster. And the first person that jumps out to me actually is Gordon Hayward. Now, Gordon Hayward is a very interesting case. He has a very high ceiling. We know he is a player that is capable of all-star play, being very productive, putting up good numbers. But at the same time, he's been injured his entire career and has never really reached that ceiling that we saw glimpses of when he was on the Utah Jazz. But with that being said, Gordon Hayward can put up a solid fantasy number, and he's averaging 26 minutes per game. If we take a look at his price here, we'll see that, he dipped all the way down to about $6, and he's still only going for like 24, 25, which is not terrible. Not terrible. He has a cap of 29, so he's one of those like 30-ish cap players. Like I said, Gordon Hayward is someone that can put up a very solid score, especially when he's healthy. And with LaMelo Ball out, it just gives him more opportunities. And if we take a look here, we can see, 32, 38, some games missed because of injury, 27, 33, 28, 41 down here. When Gordon Hayward's healthy, he has the capability of putting up a very strong number, and he has a high ceiling. Now, that is not the reason I think Gordon Hayward is an interesting moment and a potential steal. Wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if I'd go rush out and buy him, but I think at this price, he starts to be a little interesting. But the reason why Gordon Hayward is so interesting is because I think there's a very, very good chance he gets traded. And if Gordon Hayward gets traded to one of these teams where he's given even more space, he can't get double teamed, he has easier assists, all this stuff, I think it just increases his ability to reach that ceiling at a consistent basis. So I feel like scooping up Gordon Hayward between now and the trade deadline and just kind of watching where his card is, maybe if he gets injured again and we know it's nothing serious, scooping him up as he dips because he's unusable is a good move. So yeah, I think Gordon Hayward is definitely worth watching and tracking. Now, the next player I have on my list is actually Mason Plumlee. So the reason why someone like Gordon Hayward would get traded is because the Hornets are a bit of a dumpster fire. A team that was very young and exciting very quickly is in a not so great place. And they're kind of more or less in no man's land, especially when LaMelo is healthy, where they're going to be the middle of the pack. And if you know anything about the NBA and the draft, you either want to be really good competing for a championship or you want to be absolutely terrible so you can get a great draft pick and get a superstar. That's how they got LaMelo. They are able to draft him. So already on his own, Mason Plumlee is kind of a very interesting target for SoRare because if we look at his scores, we're going to see he has some good games, but he also has some bad games. A lot of 20s we're seeing. Here's an 8, but then he can also put up a 45, a 30, a 38. And as a result, that inconsistency, I feel like keeps his cap relatively low and unchecked. So his cap, which, if a player's putting up a 45, they're usually in the 30s. But Mason Plumlee will probably keep it around in the 20s because, he's also going to put up a 16 and a 17. So he might not be a player you want to play on your lineup when he only has one game. But if he has two games, it might not be the worst decision to throw him in there and see if he can hit a ceiling game and not a dud. He's a big man who's capable of getting a lot of rebounds, a lot of putbacks. He can get a lot of blocks potentially, and blocks are worth more in SoRare than they are in traditional DFS. So all those things I think really add up. And then finally, if someone like Gordon Hayward gets traded or another player gets traded, then Mason Plumlee gets an increase in minutes because someone has to play. Like they have to play these games. So if they're really not trying to win, they might just leave Mason Plumlee in there for 30, 40 minutes a game because they're trying to actively lose. And Mason Plumlee can get all those garbage time stats that make a huge difference in DFS. So if we take a look at his price chart real quick, we'll see kind of a similar pattern that we see more or less with people. But here he hit all the way to 24, and then all the way down to $3 here, 2, 4, and he's still sitting at like 10 to 15. So if I could get Mason Plumlee sub 10, I think that is a great buy. That is an absolute steal long term, and you will have multiple opportunities to play him in a lineup or sell him for a elevated price. So yeah, I really like Mason Plumlee here. I think he's a very interesting play as the season goes along and someone definitely worth watching. All right. So the third player I have on my list is PJ Washington. So PJ Washington kind of fits into what we were already talking about with Mason Plumlee, but I think he has a bit of a higher ceiling. As we can see, he's sitting at around $24, $25, which was the same price as Gordon Hayward. And unlike Gordon Hayward, who we're saying he probably has to get traded for him to really be worth that price, PJ Washington has literally just shown that he has quite a high ceiling. It doesn't take long for us to scroll down and see that he put up a 57 against the Cavaliers. Granted, the game went to overtime, but I mean, still, he was absolutely eating if you watch that game. And even then, we can see 36, 31, 27, 38, 39. He is capable of having some very high ceiling games. And these 6s and 8s and under 20s help keep his cap low. So once again, while, PJ Washington maybe isn't a superstar that you're going to plug in when he has one game, if he has 2 games for a slate, it's not worth taking a risk and saying, okay, he might have a stinker, but he also might have a ceiling game here. And I'm honestly surprised as I was preparing for this video. I thought PJ Washington, which was on my list before he put that 57-point game up, I thought there would be a huge spike here. And I would have to say, yeah, he was on my list. I don't think he's really worth purchasing now. But as you can see, that 60-point game really didn't do anything to his price. You can still get him for basically the same price that you would have got him before that. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a pretty good steal. If you're getting a player at $20 who's capable of hitting a 60 and has a cap of under 30, so you're getting a potential overperformance of plus 30, like that is what you're looking for in SoRare. Someone with a cap under 30 that can hit one of those high ceiling games. So PJ Washington would be pretty high on my list. He seems to be just getting better as he plays. And like we've talked about with the last 2 players, just the whole situation in Charlotte makes it really ripe for him to continue to get more minutes and more production. As we can see, he's averaging 32 minutes a game. So he is getting the minutes you need to have those ceiling games. And then his price has not like absolutely skyrocketed after having 1 or 2 huge games. And maybe that is because he's inconsistent. Like you can't play PJ Washington and guarantee that he's not going to ruin your lineup. But, he's worth a dice roll. Like if you're going to pay, you could pay $200, $300 and get a Giannis, and Giannis might put up a 40, or you could like spend $20 and get a PJ Washington and he might be able to put up a 40. I think the important thing here is, if you don't want to just light money on fire, trying to build like just a crazy stacked lineup, like you have to take dart throws. And PJ Washington is a dart throw. Imagine if you bought PJ Washington for like, 10 bucks, 15 bucks, and he put up a 60 for you. That's better than buying a lot of the stars that this week for a lot more. So I think when you see someone capable of the ceiling, it's worth paying attention to. So PJ Washington is definitely a steal on my list. All right, before I point out my last person, I just want to say an honorable mention on my list is Jalen McDaniels. I don't think you can really label him a steal because he hasn't shown like this crazy ceiling ability in terms of like actual fantasy points, but he is a very young player who, if you watch him play, seems to have a lot of potential. He might be worth watching, seeing if he goes off a night or two, and maybe he's worth picking up then. I'm not going to dive too deep into him, but the last player we are going to look at is Dennis Smith Jr. So there was a lot of interest with Dennis Smith Jr. after LaMelo Ball was injured, and he lived up to the hype. A lot of people were saying he might perform well, and if we take a look at his scores, we can see that on October 31st, he dropped a 50 bomb in DFS, which is pretty good for someone who has a cap of 27 now, but I think back then his cap was pretty low. So Dennis Smith Jr. is definitely pretty good steal. And if we take a look at the graph here, we can see that, on leading up to October 31st, we can see this verticality, which kind of indicates that people were really interested in him. And we can see it go straight up, and he got up to like 36 bucks here. And even then he's kind of drifting around 33, 34, but then he takes this massive dip because he gets injured. And right now we can see him sitting at around $15. LaMelo Ball just got injured again, unfortunately, by stepping on a fan's foot and twisting his ankle. So, there's that opportunity for Dennis Smith Jr. to get some more minutes and have the potential to hit that 40, 50 point DFS game again. Once again, I'm not super hot on Dennis Smith Jr., where I think you have to buy him right away or figure out how to squeeze him in your lineup. I do think this cap of 27 is a little high. He was a lot more interesting when his cap was significantly lower. So I definitely don't think he's someone you have to rush out and buy right away. But like a lot of these that we're talking about, he's just a player that I think is worth watching. And, if the cap looks right to you, if his price looks right to you, or, if his situation looks right in terms of how many minutes he's going to get or if he's starting, I just think all those are interesting variables that when they're combined in the right way is an optimal play. Like I said, it's just someone you got to watch. The whole point of these videos is pointing out players that we can purchase and have before they shoot to the moon. Because, who wants to spend $50 on Orlando Robinson for one game and then watch him go back to the G League? So we want to get these cards when there is a much lower risk. And if they pump, we're sitting in an incredible position. And if they don't, we're not losing an astronomical amount of the card's value. So I think I'm going to end the video here. Once again, if you do not have an NBA SoRare account, make sure to use the link in the description below. Please feel free to leave a like. Please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment and let me know what you think. Was there any players that you strongly disagree with my evaluation, or was there a player or two I missed? Is Kai Jones a must-buy after that insane dunk he had, or am I kind of writing off Jalen McDaniels a little prematurely? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you had to say. Feel free to check out the rest of the videos in this series, and join me next time for the next episode of SoRare Steals, where we take a look at the Chicago Bulls. Please clap.